but I left, I would say probably about $30,000 on the table.
I am sorry that I also contributed to that voice that also helped drive you to feel lonely and isolated.
I was like, I'm not going to get emotional, but like, here I go getting emotional, dude. Just because there's a lot of things that's in our sport that people don't want to talk about.
Photographer of the year, let's hear it for Dan Shelley, Shellda Photos.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Shellda Podcast, where today I'm joined by a dear friend of mine and somebody who just had a crazy life-changing event. So like the timing of having you on is incredible. Benji Schroeder, welcome to the show.
My man, Dan, it is an honor, brother. It is an honor. Thank you so much.
For sure. So we're going to dive into your story because, like I said, you just had some life-changing events. And as a little teaser, you were a general manager and was your dream job, and you decided to quit and leave.
Yeah.
But I'm going to leave it there because we got to plug some show sponsors first. You know all about show sponsors.
Of course. Got to show the love, man.
Yeah. So my guys at, Hormesis, Alex, Oliver, Kevin, Miko, like the whole team, my goodness, they're just some of the most humble, incredible people in the whole entire industry. And it feels like every few weeks I'll get a text or something of like, hey, did you see this new thing coming out? And they're just always hooking me up with gear. And I think a few episodes ago, I even gave away one of the Iron Kid straps to Justin Vasquez, one of the local guys. So it's just so cool that like Hormesis supports the industry as so much as they do. And then secondly, I picked up Pro DNA about a month ago now, a month and a half. And I've been slowly like testing their products. And I'm a person where if I'm going to like talk about something and have it like represent me and my brand, I have to like firmly believe in it. They sent me their, like the slide pants that they have.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh, dude. Like the padding on this stuff is.
I need to get some of those myself, honestly.
It's next level. My body temperature, like I always run hot. And so I was worried about that with the Texas summer, but even wearing that, like it doesn't affect me at all. Like I feel like it actually keeps me cooler because it takes some of the sweat away. Mm-hmm. And the padding is just chef's kiss. And the nice part about it is you can buy those directly at bfpgear.com. Junior and Gina Brown have been absolutely crushing it. They sponsor the top 2 teams in the world. And they're just constantly putting out, new content. And they just have such an incredible team over there in California. And it's an honor to be a part of to BFP Gear. So, well, let's jump into the hot news. So I think literally maybe an hour or two ago, I got a text me of like, hey, I just quit my job.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah. Well, like I said, again, thank you for having me on. It definitely some life-changing news has come about. I did quit my job today, my dream job, working managing a paintball field. Obviously there's a lot of layers there and a lot of context that I'm sure we'll jump into. And it was jumping back into kind of what I was doing since college, and something I'm still super passionate about too, which is recruiting and staffing and stuff. So, I'm excited to kind of enter back into that world and take that same sort of like competitiveness and, vigor and try to like channel that into, back into corporate professional goals and aspirations. Yeah. So,
man, that's massive. I remember, I think is it about a year that you were in this role?
Yeah. So let's see, lose track where we're June 13th. I can't keep up with time anymore, man. So about a year and some change is how long I had this or had these multiple hats that I wore.
Yeah. And we'll dive into that.
Yeah.
So about a year.
About a year.
Because I vividly remember a little bit more than a year ago now, you would talk to me at our local field and you would say, hey, you know what? Like, I'm thinking about it. Like, I'm thinking about quitting my full-time corporate job to go work at a paintball field and like go be a GM of it. And I'm like, that's crazy. Like you've got so much stability and security and benefits, the whole 9 yards. And you're like, this is my dream. Like I need to go do this. And as soon as I heard you say that, I was like, my respect level for you just went out the roof. Because that's something that has really fueled me is I don't want to get later in my life, look back and regret not doing something or trying something. So I respect the hell out of you for taking that leap of faith and trying it, you know, going after your dream.
Yeah, it was a leap of faith for sure. I think it's probably one of the like scariest things that I've ever done in terms of like, you know, just taking kind of like that quote unquote leap of faith professionally. Because since I got out of college and school, like I've progressed pretty naturally throughout my, you know, corporate career, starting just, you know, as a low recruiter, kind of working my way up into more of like a staffing sales role. And to where like when I left my corporate job, I left at a pretty, you know, good commission clip and a pretty decent base salary as well. And, you know, when I did leave, I not only left health benefits and and kind of that security that you talked about, right? But I left, you know, I would say probably about $30,000 on the table.
Wow.
In terms of like what I was giving up and kind of going to pursue. But in my mind at the time, right, it was like, you know, you're in a good spot financially, at least to kind of be able to buffer to make that jump. And then also to doing that, what I had done, it is a grind. It's much like paintball, right? It is a grind.
Sure.
Day in and day out. Staffing is just up and down because it's the people business. And, you know, when the economy is not doing so well, companies aren't hiring a whole lot. And when companies aren't hiring a whole lot, like companies like mine kind of feel that pinch, right? So it's like stressful that you're trying to like build business up in that, and it can be very draining mentally. And I think I had gotten to a point there where I was just like, man, you know what? I've been doing this for 7 years. I need to take a step back. I need a break. Like, here's an opportunity for me to step into something that like I'm super passionate about.
Yeah.
And like consumes me. So I'm like, let me take that same like attitude towards this and see like what I can do with it. And like, you know, talked with my significant other about it. And she was like, hey, go make it happen. Like, do what makes you happy. Like, I'll support you. And so, you know, took that risk and that jump, that leap of faith rather.
Hey, really quick, before we go further into this podcast, I just want to take a moment and say thank you so much for all of the amazing support. This past year, starting this journey has just been phenomenal with how much support you've given me. That has made me wonder, though, only about half of you that are watching and listening are subscribed to this YouTube channel. So the really quick and easy way to show your support is by hitting that subscribe button below. Thanks for your support, and back to the show. Wow, that is something that I think a lot of people in their lifetime won't ever do, because they're just so scared to do that. And especially with everything that you described of losing benefits, it sounds like you took a massive pay cut to go, you know, chase this dream. But to have the support of a partner to do that is just unreal. Like, that's one of the best things that you could ask for, right?
Yeah, no, 100%.
Talk to me about that last year. What was it like when you started in this role as, it was general manager?
Yeah. So that was the official job title, general.
Talk to me about that, because I think what happens is anything like with this podcast or photography or being that role that you are, like, you dream about it and like you want it so bad, and then sometimes when you show up, it doesn't match that reality. Talk to me about what it was like when you actually were now a full-time paintball employee. Yeah,
wow. I mean, you talk about, you know, like you said, the dream, right? Like you have, and I think this applies to, I think you hear it sometimes too with people that, you know, suddenly come into like a lot of money, right? You often hear the millionaire or like the billionaire be like, money isn't everything. And you're like sitting over here and you're like, oh, I wish I had that money. Like, you know what I mean? So you don't, you don't really know what that life is going to be like. You have an idea of what it is, and that's what the dream is, right? Like you're dreaming about it. You don't know what it's going to be. You think you know what it's going to be like, but you don't really know what lies on the other side of that hill. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, you know, upon taking that leap of faith, I had all of these ideas because I have traveled a lot with paintball and I have seen a lot of places and I have talked to a lot of people. Working at a field was my first job ever in life. When I was 13, I worked at Asylum Paintball in Louisville, Kentucky for Kenny Snell, who I still see at tournaments and is, you know, I'm probably 2 feet taller than him now. You know what I mean? So, but
full circle, literally.
Yeah, right. Yeah. We always cry when we see each other all the time. He's like, "Oh my God, I'm so proud of you." But yeah. So you think you have an idea of what it'll be like, and you have. I had, for me coming in, I had a list of things that I wanted to do and a vision that I had. And then when you get into a role like that, you get into that life and you kind of pull the curtain back from, you know, now it's not just a hobby, right? Now it's a job, right? So let's think about like when every paintball player, we get the opportunity every weekend to reap the best benefit of this game, you know, like to play it. You know, like that is the best thing. We don't have to deal with, you know, delayed paint shipments. We don't have to deal with staff. We don't have to deal with bunkers that are ripping, right? Like that's not our problem. You know, it's not our responsibility to fix, to make sure, you know, the park is running in a way that is conducive for, you know, its park goers, right? Its consumers. Like that's not our problem, right? So we don't have to see that stuff and we can enjoy just playing every weekend. But when you jump into that industry, it no longer is the hobby. It's like, okay, no. The business obviously has to come first, and you have to take care of all of these things that are just like, when you list them out, maybe small, but they're things that you have to take care of every single weekend, right? And a lot of times at a lot of fields, I would imagine like the staff is just not super robust. So you're the one and the only one to kind of handling that small stuff. And then I'll give you an example, like, you know, perfect example, layouts, right? So one of my biggest responsibilities was setting up both fields for, you know, any new layouts that we had, or if a layout gets, you know, stale. You know, tournament guys love to tell you that it's been up for a while. You know, I've been one of those guys. So, you know, if I wasn't able to tap, you know, someone on the shoulder who lived close to the field that I was working at, then I'd have to do it myself, you know. And you think about, you know, our front, you think about trying unstaking a bunker and then pulling that off. And then if it's not blown up, you got to blow it up too, so you can see what it is. Right. So it's just a lot of stuff for one person. And that would be an all day thing. So that might be one day. That may be one day of your work. And you haven't even addressed any issues that might be going on with other fields. You might not have, you know, done, you know, the minor janitorial work just to keep the park looking nice. Right. So I say all that to say is that, you know, when you come in with grand visions of like huge overhauls, right? And then you realize that, oh, wait, there's this other laundry list of things that need to be done just to keep the park looking good and running. It gets tougher and tougher to accomplish these goals, right? You know what I mean? Because of time. Essentially, you just don't have the time.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is when you take something that's an idea or passion and you flip it into that business side, you're spot on. Everything that you just described. If you think about a calendar, right, and you put a task in all of that, it's going to fill up more than 8 hours a day instantly. Mm-hmm. And that's just the maintenance of a park or a maintenance of a field. That's not doing anything creative. That's not focusing on how do we get lights in here for night ball and testing that stuff out. Traveling around to all these different events. We had Matt Soma on last week, who is a professional referee and does this full time. He went to Cincinnati a week before all of us showed up to set it all up. And so that just goes to show that so much goes into running a field.
Yeah.
And even the small things, as a photographer, I'm always laying on the ground, right? And like the Dorito side at the field that we're at is sometimes there's grass there. And if it gets too high, like I can't get a certain shot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would text you and be like, hey, can you go weed whack the side? And you're like, man, I'll try. But like, I've got a laundry list of other things. That's the lowest of my priority. And I understand that. I think for players, when we show up to the field for, a handful of hours on Sunday, there's so much that people just don't think about. Like when you see trash cans that are empty that you can put your paint in, or your paint boxes, somebody's got to go empty that every few hours. Air stations, I think a lot about here in Texas. We have a lot of weather this time of the year, and whenever we have a massive rainstorm or windstorm, you are the person that has to go fix those nets and go fix all that stuff.
And God forbid it happens on a Thursday or a Friday or a Friday. There's a lot of things that are not in your control, and that always made me feel, especially in the beginning, it just made me feel really bad, because part of the reason why I chose to do this was because I cared so much about the people that played at our field. And it had just had such a positive, the game has just had such a positive impact on me. It's like Kenny, like people like Kenny had such a positive impact on me. Brad, which was like an older guy that was at Asylum that had, a big impact on me. Tim, Todd, Trey, all of these guys I'm naming Asylum guys.
Sure.
The Midwest crew will probably know who these guys are. Asylum's at all the 10-man events. But I wanted to be that person for, some of our guys and some of our younger crew, and say like, hey man, look, like if you like paintball and you love paintball, like, hey, give back to the field. You know what I mean? Be that helping hand, water your own garden. You know what I mean? Like, have a positive impact on somebody's life, and then make their paintball experience like the best that it possibly can be. Because like, in 20 years, dude, like somebody's going to come up and hug me and be like, you have no idea what you did for me. Like, you're the reason why I started playing. I wanted to be that and have that positive impact on people, and like being at the park and setting a good example and trying to make it the best that I can be, and like trying to accommodate all of my peers and all of these guys. And like, like yourself, like, dude, I felt so bad when I can't get to that stuff, because oftentimes you have to choose.
Yeah.
You have to choose, like, all right, am I going to worry about this or am I going to worry about that? You know what I mean? You're damned if you do, damned if you don't, for sure, but you got to choose the lesser of two evils, dude. Yeah.
You're going to piss somebody off regardless.
Yeah. You're going to upset someone. So it was tough.
Yeah. And I think if I think back to when you started this journey, when everybody in the local community heard that you were taking over, like everyone was so excited, and the message boards filled up with all these ideas, and you were excited about all of it. And I started to notice this shift where, and I went through it too. Like, I will totally admit it, where I was like, man, like Benji promised all these things to us and it's not happening. And then I started to notice this divide of people where like they supported you, and then it was like, well, what the hell, Benji? Like, why aren't you doing this? And it almost like people turned a little bit. Talk to me about what that experience was like for you, because these were all your friends that you were trying to help them and do the right thing. So what was that like?
Oh man. I was like, I'm not going to get emotional, but like, here I go getting emotional, dude. That was probably one of the biggest things that like, hurt me, like, because I saw the shift too. And these were people that like I played with every weekend.
Yeah.
And these are my friends, like my peers. And I did come in swinging for the fences. And like I said, thinking that I could like conquer the world, man.
Yeah.
You know, and like, oh, we had all talked about this stuff that we want to do and we want to see and like we want to make happen, but we just never really had a person to champion that in our seat, you know, like to be our voice, right? And then when that doesn't happen, naturally, people are just like, yeah, like what the hell, Benji? Like I thought like we were gonna do all of this stuff. And I'll be the first one to admit, like when that started to happen, some of my best good friends, like it hurt our relationship. And it, for a while, made me lose really good friends that I started playing with when I moved here.
Wow.
You know, and because people were upset like that I wasn't doing stuff. And then I would get upset at them because I'm like, well, you don't understand like what's going on. And I would get defensive and like have this like superiority complex of like, you just don't get it. You know what I mean? And it's like, instead of being like sympathetic and maybe a little bit more transparent about constraints, I was like just willing to just be like, no, you're like, you know, being a crybaby, or like you're not doing this, not doing that. And like I had to look inwardly in myself and apologize to those people like as my time went on, because I realized that I was in the wrong there of like, no, I shouldn't have handled things that way. I should have been, you're one of my best friends. You're like all of you, my good friends. I should have been more honest and open with you about like why something isn't going down or why something can't happen. And I think that, you know, when that initial action, I played a part in that divide. And because I just, again, it was like, I took so much pride in like what I was doing. And I felt like I was trying my best with what I had been given. And because of that, that's where like that attitude of like, oh no, you don't, like, you just don't get it. Like you don't understand. Right. Yeah. Like, and I made that divide even bigger. Yeah. And so where it got to a point, man, where like I would go to the field and I would feel the most alone that I had ever felt. Like you don't understand until like, because I told you, like I had picked up like a little part-time of I just love working out, and I'm always looking at ways like to cut costs of that paintball and gym and all that stuff. So I picked up a job at a gym here in town, like a local gym. And so meaning I had working 2 jobs, and just so happened that like, you know, I would work until from 3 to 11 p.m. on a Friday, get up Saturday at, you know, whatever, 6:30, 6:45, right? Take care of the dog, head to the field to make sure I get to the field by 8, right? Yeah. Get to the field at 8. I'm there for a couple hours letting people in. Get like a 2-hour break, but I mean, I live far enough away to at the time I get home. I mean, it cuts about an hour out, right? So what's the point? So I usually get in my car and I will go park somewhere because like mentally I need to get away from the field, which is so crazy to say. Yeah. Like, because that was for the longest time my sanctuary, but I need to get away. And then I come back for another 10, 11 hours. So we're staring down the barrel of a 13-hour day. And I'm leaving, the last one to leave the park, because of like night balls, and get up and do it all over like at 9, and get up and do it all over again on Sunday. And through that the entire time, you're just driving home on that Saturday night and just being like, dude, like I didn't shoot my gun at all. I didn't go hang out at the water cooler with my friends. You know, half of paintball is bullshitting with your pals.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
my bullshitting became like a head nod when people walked out the field. You know, especially like when it got like when it was like kind of getting a little like hasty of like, oh, there's nothing really being done. You know what I mean? Like, and that just killed me. It killed me, dude. I hated it because like so it gets to the weekend, don't get to see my friends. I don't get to play paintball. I'm working 56 hours a week. It feels like I'm just not accomplishing anything. And like, I feel like I should be getting all the things in the world. And like, nobody's thanking me. They're more just being like, why isn't this getting done? Yeah. You know what I mean? Or why isn't this way? And that's from all angles, right? There's consumer management, everything. And, you know, and I'm also a boyfriend too. So I'm not spending time with my significant other, and, you know, rightfully so. She's like, well, what about me? You know what I mean? And so like, you just get to this point where you just feel like you're letting everyone down in your life, and you have no release. And it really started to get spooky there, like really quickly, man. And it started to send me down like a really like familiar path that I didn't want to go down again. Yeah. So it was tough, man, but I had to have a lot of like just mental fortitude to hang in there and kind of stick it out and see it through, you know?
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. It's so like, it breaks you're talking about emotion. Like I feel myself getting choked up because like, this is a sport that is supposed to be so beautiful and an outlet for all of us. And to hear that like you chased your dream job to have this and to have it be the thing that made you almost the loneliest. And it sounds like it silenced you in a way where it put you in a spot where like you couldn't do anything because you were trying to protect your friends and players, but then also protect your job in like the office. Right. And so like when you have that battle, you're the one that becomes silenced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's something that like, and I tell the kids this at our field all the time, you know, the little goobers that run around. I'm like, you man, have fun. This is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be fun. None of what we do is supposed to be stressful. Ryan Gray said this to me, like when I saw him in Europe, like I would just ask him, I was like playing a semi-pro event. I was like, you know, my first semi-pro event, I'm like just all kind of geared up, and I was just asking for advice. And he's like, dude, it's just paintball. It's just paintball. You're in France right now playing paintball. Enjoy it. You're right. So it's like, just enjoy it. And then when you can no longer enjoy your hobby and you feel like it's just taking away from you as a person, rather it's like, you know, taking away from your cup, not filling it up.
Yeah.
You know, that's just, it sucks, man. It absolutely sucks because it's like, like I said, you just are so lonely in the sense that like all my communication, like I'm losing my friends, like my communication with people that play at the field is just, like I said, a head nod. Yeah. You know, I've known these people for years, you know, like, and for it to come to that, like, I just don't. And I mean, you know, I work, you know, you're by yourself during the week, you know, and there's just a big difference between, and, you know, you might hear like, oh, you got access to a field and 24/7, blah, blah, you know, people would see me like doing drills and stuff on Instagram. And I'm like, yeah, man, like there's a big difference between like shooting at a cone and then shooting at like one of your buddies on the other side of the field. And then, like totally. Talking about like, oh, I shot you like this, but try to do this, or like you're coming out here, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's all cool, man. That's why we all do this to be, you know, like, and it felt like it was ripped away from me, dude.
Yeah. Wow. That's like the whole, as you're saying that, like, I thought like, that's the whole Instagram versus reality, right? Cause like, I vividly remember like you would post those things of like you doing drills and stuff. And I would see both sides of it. I would see myself included. I'd be like, wow, like cool. Benji's like growing, but then it's also like, what the hell? Like there's so much other stuff that he could be doing. Why is he doing this? you know? And if I think a great reel that could have happened, and maybe someone else will make this, is if they're a full-time GM like you were, create that Instagram versus reality reel of like, hey, throughout the week, it's lonely. You're at the field, no one's there. You're not talking to anybody.
Yeah. And I think that is a great idea. And I think that's something that, like, I think because I obviously took a little break from, consistently posting for like the last couple of weeks or about a month or so, just because of all the transition stuff that I was going through, just trying to figure it all out. Right. And but before that time, like, I was getting more into kind of the reality of what paintball is.
Yeah.
And like just because there's a lot of things that that's in our sport that people don't want to talk about. And I'm not saying like in terms of, just politics or anything like that with some of the news and stuff that's going on in the paintball world. I'm talking more of like player experience, what to look for, right? Like why, certain situations might be the way that they are. Like, if you're, wanting to play at a higher level, or if you're wanting to travel a lot to play, or like all of these like lessons, like these little golden nuggets that I wish somebody would have just like kind of explained to me in the beginning. And the dose of reality, right? And the dose of reality for me is like, hey man, like, during the week, you got 24/7 access to a field. Oh, 100% you do. You can play whenever you want. But the flip side of that is that, your game also too, like your instincts and just your read and reacts, your fun, that might suffer because paintball is a weekend sport, man.
Yeah.
You're working on weekends.
And that's like, I know it sounds like we're really dogging on being a GM, and that's not the point of this. The point of this is like show a reality of what somebody went through chasing something, right? And I think, I appreciate you opening up and being vulnerable because I went through this too. When I started the whole photography journey, it was this like, man, I get to go to these new cities every few times of the year. And like, I'll bring Amanda and we'll go explore. And that just never happened because like I got so exhausted, and there's such long days that it's that whole like, well, it's not what I expected. Mm-hmm. And then you've got to reset that relationship with yourself. You've got to reset that relationship with your partner, with people around you. And if you don't do that, like that's where, like you were saying, a lot of your relationships do start to go away. There's this, you hear it a lot where some people say, don't ever mix business with, friends and whatnot. Yeah. You and I went through it. There was a point where I think you wanted to use some of my content and I didn't feel supported. I'm like, I've got to be compensated for this. Mm-hmm. You didn't get the support from the front office to do that. And so like it put you and I in a weird spot of like, man, like I want to help grow, but also I need time and effort. I need to be compensated for that too. Mm-hmm. And so it's a weird dynamic of doing something that you love, pouring your heart into this game, and then almost having it be something that you just want nothing a part of at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 100%. And, and I'm glad I'm on here now because Dan, I can tell you, I'm sorry, man.
Same.
I'm sorry, and I apologize for that because it did put a riff in things, and it put both of us in a weird position because it's like, of course I understand the importance, but I also understand like, I've been, doing sales for the last 7 years. It's a bottom line that you have to be like contractors that I would place need to be paid for their work. You know what I mean? So sure. It's a tough thing to deal with.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I'll apologize back to you too, because I was part of that crew that did bash the field and bash essentially what you were like. You were mm-hmm. running all of it, and so when the gate wasn't opened up right at 8:00 and there was a line of cars and I posted on my story, like, hey, why isn't the field open? Yeah. I was part of that too. So I am sorry that I also contributed to that voice that also helped drive you to feel lonely and isolated. I think now that people understand that you are one person wearing hats of 7 or 8 different full-time employees, hopefully they'll give you some grace and reach out to you and say, hey, you know what, I'm sorry I did that too.
Yeah. I've started to have conversations with different people and kind of not necessarily mend those relationships, but give a little bit of a better transparency and understanding to like what everything was. And, like I said, I mean, communication is the biggest thing in the world, right? And it's just, you got to communicate and you got to be transparent.
Totally.
And when people understand, people, are generally a little bit more gracious and stuff like that. But like I said, it did hurt because you're like, oh man, like that's because it's kind of like your personal stamp. Like, that again, one of my hats was, one of your hats whenever you're in any role as a GM is kind of, the buck stops with you, right? Yeah. It's paintball, restaurants, bar, whatever. Like the buck stops with you. Like, so you're the fall guy for a lot of stuff. When something's not right, when the field's not blown up, that's on you. When you're not, when the gate's not open, that's on you. When the nets aren't up, that's on you. You know what I mean? Like staff doesn't show up, that's on you. You know what I mean? So it's and you just gotta know that and accept that. And it's just kind of part of the job.
Yeah. Let's flip it a little bit. Let's talk about like, what were some of the positives that you took away from this role? Because there are going to be people that listen to this and like they want to make their career paintball somehow, and running a field or managing a field, that could be a dream of theirs. And so I don't want to kill that dream. Honestly, you're giving a unique inside look of something that I don't think is the normal at a lot of paintball fields. But what's the flip side of it? Like, what were some things that did bring you joy being a GM?
Oh man. So, there were a lot of things that gave joy to being a GM. One, and this was more so true in the beginning, right? You're just surrounded by paintball all the time. It kind of feels like you're at summer camp, that's what I akin it to. It's like, you wake up, like it would be the few tournaments that I was able to go to during the year, during my tenure, you'd be on the plane or in the airport and you'd be like, oh man, then people be like, I got to go back to work tomorrow. And I'm like, I gotta just go hang out at the field. Like I got to go to a paintball field. I'm going back to a field. And Mondays were usually my off day. So it was like, oh, I'm just kind of going back and taking off. So it's like, you're always like, you kind of feel like a little kid, like I just go and hang out at, the park. Right. And I get to kind of do all this cool stuff and you're already super passionate about it. So it's like, it's hard work. Yes. But like, you're like, I don't mind doing hard work because I'm at a paintball field. Right. So it's like that passion that just continues to fuel you all the time. And like, you have that sense of like, oh, I want to give back, and like also want to work hard, but like, I'm getting paid for like doing something cool. You know what I mean? So it's like that stoke factor, when you really like the sport and being a part of it. It's like somebody who works at a skate shop, right? Like, like you're just surrounded by, you pop a skate video in, or like, for me, I would just pop a dirter video up on the TV. And if I'm cleaning or fixing guns or masks or whatever, and it's just like, all right, cool. I'm a shop guy, and that's cool. So that was a stoke. It was like like a 24/7 just stoke of paintball. The next thing I would say is that like we talked about, like kind of playing with other folks and stuff like that, and how that's like super, super important. And like a part that near the end, like was just kind of missing and not there for me. But the plus side to that is that you do have 7 access to a paintball field. So it's like, if you want to go shoot your paintball gun, you can, on your lunch break or like in the morning before you start your chores, like you can go do that. You can work on you can drill your fundamentals till the cows come home and just be, just have the cleanest slides and the best best looking snapshot. And, and like, that's cool. Like, because for me, like I said, I've always been super big into fitness. I played college athletics. Waking up, training, lifting, and, doing skills training is just something that was just in me. It was in my daily schedule when I would go to class, like, weight lift, train, class, train again. You know what I mean? And like, that's what it was. So it kind of felt like I had my old schedule back, like in college, where it's cool. Like, I'm going to like, all right, cool. I'm lifting now. then I can go train, then I can do my chores, you know, and I'm getting paid for this. Right. So that is a plus, right? Your schedule is super flexible in terms of like, you know, not like, I know a lot of guys, like it's really hard because a lot of us don't live super close to the field. Plus we all have like jobs that are 9 to 5, 8 to 5 or whatever, like some 8 to 6, you know, some guys do construction and stuff. So it's just, you can't get to the field all the time and work on that kind of stuff. You know, you have to take 20 minutes here or there on the weekends to kind of snap at a pole or grab a buddy or whatever. But like, you know, when you got 24/7 access to a field, you can just go do that whenever you want. So that is a plus, right? And it also too, like you can, and what I was started to do, and I had kind of like gave me a little bit more opportunity in the beginning to do Breakfast Club stuff, right? And like to try to get that off the ground and get content for that. And you can dive a little bit more into stuff like that, especially if you are creative and you want to do content and stuff. You have time to do that because you're already there, right? Like so you just set it up while you're doing your drills and, you know, go from there. So it's like the overarching positive of what being a GM of a field is like, you're always in the environment that you go to every weekend. And it's not a normal throw your button up on, go to the office type gig, right?
Yeah.
Most of us, you know, a few of us have, some of us have, right? Some people work remote and I use that as just a term, right? But like not going to grabbing your coffee and sitting down and opening Microsoft Teams.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've every time I saw you, and there's a few times like I would pop by throughout the week, you were always like in either shorts and a cutoff t-shirt and covered in grass or like dirty.
Just old paint, dude. Like,
like you're literally going from the field to the office to make a call to a vendor, then back to the field, you know?
Yep. Never returned back clean. Like always having to wash all my sneakers every week because they're just got paint all over them, dude.
Yeah.
So
just part of the lifestyle.
Part of the lifestyle, man, for sure. My girlfriend yelling at me when I come into the house because the turf pebbles are everywhere, you know?
So pro tip, if you want to be a GM at a paintball field, invest in a very good vacuum cleaner.
And then like have like your house shoes in the car so you don't track your stuff inside the apartment. Yeah,
the things that you learn.
The things that you learn, man. You know, a big tip that I did pick up was Nike has these shoes called the Nike Gore-Tex. And they're pretty much trail running shoes that are water resistant. Game changer for me. Like, cause I was like getting my socks wet like every single day. And I'm like, oh my God, I got damp socks all day. It's the worst feeling in the world. Like, I got these Nike shoes, invested that money, man, not an issue anymore.
Yeah. That's the things that you don't think about before you start, you know?
Yep.
Awesome. Hey, let's transition a little bit and talk about, you touched on it a little bit earlier, and I had Patty Gleason on a few weeks ago, and I had brought up your name to him pre-show and during the show, and like he lit up. He's like, "Oh yeah, Benji's like he's my guy," you know. And he went really deep into his recovery efforts and you know all the things that he went through. I know from talking to you and building a relationship with you that like you went through a lot of those things too, and it sounds like towards the end of you stepping away from the GM role is some of that stuff started to creep up a little bit. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, man. Well, first things first, Patty is my fucking guy, man. That's my guy. And I still remember our conversation, like our first and like initial conversation when I kind of opened up to you about that stuff. And that was early on in my sobriety where I wasn't really telling a whole lot of people that I was like, you know, because like when you're early, you're just like, you just kind of feel weird about telling people you have a drug problem. Like, you know what I mean?
You feel like you're trauma dumping on somebody.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, I don't want to overshare, man. And it's like you go through a weird thing. You're like, I don't really want to tell a whole lot of people. But then you realize that like, okay, recognizing that and telling people, you maybe like tell more people like than you did. It's just kind of this weird thing. Like I didn't want to share, but like now I'm sharing with everybody. And it's like, so, but anyway, like, yeah, I said, Patty's my guy, man. And I still remember it was early. I think it was when the NXL was doing the opens. And they had the open at, in SAC at that field, I think Capital Edge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember, and I had seen Patty, like when he had done his OTL stuff, and I kind of knew his like sobriety story. And I remember standing like right next to him and like I was still using at the time, but I was like towards the end of my substance abuse, and I was like thinking about getting sober, but I just didn't know how to go about it. And I just like, he was just sitting there, and I was like, "Would you just say something to him? Like, just say something to him. Like, go up to him, like, start a comment." And I chickened out. I ultimately didn't say anything, but and so I was like, I don't think I ever told him that, but I was like, I remember like, I just go talk to him, dude. But yeah, man. So like coming up on, it'll be 3 years in November for me.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And yeah, it was something that was a very big problem that paintball helped out with in the beginning. And it's this weird like dichotomy. And like you say, coming full circle, it's like the thing that ultimately saved my life started to, and I'm not saying like playing paintball, but like the paintball, what paintball is, started to take away, like bring me closer to that part that like it saved me from.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's so weird to say. But like I said, like when you're in that car at 10 o'clock at night and you're going home and you realize that you have to go back to this field at 8 a.m. and you've done nothing to help your sobriety or to like, because you're always recovering. Like I will always be an addict, always.
Yeah.
But I have to recover every single day. Like recover that time, maybe 10 minutes. It might be an hour of sitting with myself in those thoughts, but like every day is recovery, or it might be going to play paintball. Right. And now I don't have that paintball to recover from. And the stresses of every day are what got me doing substances and stuff in the beginning. And now like, and because like at the time, like I had hurt my knee, and so I didn't have an outlet, and I wasn't mature enough to realize that, if I just spent more time around my peers, then like then I'll be okay. But like I shut myself off from everybody else. And like when I first started playing here in Texas, like, if you ask Matt Crowder, who's out of Texas Paintball, I was like, yeah, Benji was here. And then like, he just disappeared for a year and a half, 2 years. Because I hurt my knee, and I was like, I can't play paintball, and I'm not going to be around here. I'm just going to go to the bar and do a bunch of coke and call it a day. You know what I mean? And I started to hang out with the wrong group of people and just separate myself from everything, but then ultimately was able to kind of like bring myself out of that hole. And paintball was a big part of that. That's why like in the beginning, you always saw me at the field. I was there Saturday, Sunday. I would work in my corporate job. I would do 5 days, obviously a week, but then I would go Saturday and Sunday, play Saturday and Sunday mornings, and work the rest of the days, both days.
Wow.
So I was working 7 days a week, especially in the beginning of my sobriety, just so I'd be so tired, I wouldn't have time. And so I wouldn't go to the bar.
Wow.
So I wouldn't go to the bar. I was just literally physically so tired that I could not go to the bar. And I wanted to be so enveloped within paintball that I didn't have time for anything else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's why when I say like paintball saved my life, and the field that was the stage for that helped out a lot as well. And that was another big reason why I was like, oh man, like this will be a dream job. Right? Like, because this helped with my recovery. But again, we always don't know what's on the other side of that hill, and the stresses and the recovery, I guess, things that I did and steps that I took to help with that on an everyday basis. When those were taken away, there'd be sometimes, man, where I'd be driving home and I'd be like, you start to rationalize. And if you talk to like, I don't know, like you talk to addicts and stuff, and it's like, I think Patty, like, if I listened to the episode, might have had like, he had a friend who was going through it like 10 years or something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, dude, you rationalize one drink. Let me just pop by the bar.
Just one.
Get one, and like, much like a lot of people, I cannot go watch a ball game and drink one beer.
Yep.
Not gonna happen, dude. Especially like going home after a paintball field, like, and just stopping by a bar, grabbing a drink. That will turn into an all night thing, and then I'll miss the work the next day, and then I'll lose my job, and then so it's like that started to wane on me. And when it started to take away, and eat at my sobriety and my mental health, and this is with anything that it's in my life, when it starts to do those two things, I got to make a change.
Yeah.
I have to make a change. The non-negotiable that I have with myself is like, I got to make a change, dude, because I can't sustain that. And I can't even think or fathom or dream about going back to that lifestyle that I had, because I'm a completely different person. There's a whole lot of people that don't know that side of me, because I was out of paintball when that was me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, it was, like I said, it got super spooky for sure.
Was that, so like what you explained is, you started to recognize that almost like a voice in your head was starting to like rationalize just getting a drink, just one. Were you the person that caught yourself, or was that something that your partner was like, hey, Benji, like something's off here?
Yeah.
I feel like, and the reason why I ask is a lot of people are going to listen to this and they're not going to know themselves if they are rationalizing or not. And sometimes you need to hear it from a partner or like a friend. Mm-hmm. And so I would love to know like what went through your mind and how did you realize that things were starting to go down that path again?
Yeah, no. So, shout out to Carly, my girlfriend, probably soon to be fiance. She will do sobriety check-ins. And sometimes I hate her for it. And sometimes because like, she'll be like, how are you doing with your sobriety? And I'm like, stop fucking asking me about this. You know what I mean? Like, I'm fine. But she's just checking in, and sometimes it's needed, but she'll always like check in periodically. Just like, how you doing?
Comes from a loving place.
Loving place, obviously, dude. And like a lot of people who have like sponsors and stuff, like, not saying my girlfriend is my sponsor, but like just checking in. You know, just how are you doing mentally, man? Like, how are you sitting with your sobriety? Like, how are you feeling about it? And so she'll always check in like that. And then, so the other side of that is like, yeah, me catching myself, because I've gotten better at recognizing what those triggers are. And being like, oh, no. Like, you just kind of feel it like, okay, no, I need to just like go watch a funny video, get my mind off of that, right? Go like watch it. I love stand-up comedy. Like, just go watch a stand-up special, something like that, and like just laugh a little bit, take some stress away. So it's like, I would pick up on those cues with myself, and then I would have things and steps that I would like kind of deal with those things, right? Because it's always like, you driving and it's like, okay, you got that feeling of like, oh man, like I want to go get a drink, and then you're like, all right, let me just get home. And then once I get home, get some food, go to bed, right? And then you wake up in the morning and you're like, all right, thank God, I didn't make a terrible choice. And then like two, you always just think about others, right? Like, I think about like how that would affect my partner. I think that how it would affect my brain. Like, I have such more clear thought now, and like am stoked on so many other things in life that I don't need that. I remind myself of that. And I like waking up and feeling okay. Yeah. That, that quick dopamine of just trying to escape something. It's like, no, you don't need to do that, man. Come on. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think it was a thing of me maturing and developing those natural, just like things of what to do when triggers come along, because like in the early on beginning, you don't know, right? You don't really know what those are. And if you feel stressed, you grab a drink, you know what I mean? Or you go like, buddy comes up and is like, hey, you want to go to the bar? Yeah, cool. Like you just go, right? Now it's just like, nah, you know, I'm cool, you know? So.
Yeah. So it sounds like what you're saying, because someone's going to listen to this that wants to start down this path, right? And it sounds like the advice that you're giving is to first identify what those triggers are, and then either write them down or like make that your religion, and that's something that you live and breathe through.
Yeah. Or, you know, like a big thing for me is like I did therapy early on in my sobriety as well.
Yeah.
And sat with a lot of the things like my knee injury and things that happened to me in my childhood, and, you know, all of this stuff, and like family wise. And it's like, all right, cool. Let's just try to work through that stuff, you know, and like that helps. And I'm not saying people have to go to therapy. If that's not your jam, it's not your jam. But recognizing what those things are, sitting down and just like, even at its most like simplest form, just like take a breath. Like, you know, you get like just you get like this sense of, oh crap, like, okay, just, you know, like before you play a point, man, every time before you go out on the field, everybody, you see it, like, all right, everybody take a deep breath. Like,
Yeah.
you know, Chris Boyd or the Oilers, you know what I mean? Like, we're just all taking deep breaths in unison. It's silly, but it's like, just take a deep breath, man. And just, cause it's going to be all right. You know, it's going to be all right. Call a buddy, right? Talk to a buddy, man. Like chat somebody up that you know, just going to like bullshit with somebody for a little bit. You know what I mean? Just like, cause it's tough, man, but rely on your support system and then just take a deep breath and you'll start to figure it out. You'll start to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Just like paintball, you know, like you start not knowing how to snap shoot. And all of a sudden I look up and, you know, one of our goobers at the field, he's running and gunning out to the corner. I was like, oh my God, how did he learn that? You know what I mean? So it's all growth, man. It's all growth.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing those tips. I think that's what you talk about, like building your support system and, you know, having Carly just do a sobriety check-in with you. Ryan Gray said it on his episode a long time ago, and like it still sticks so true. Is he tells a story of I think he called a friend and he was like, "Hey, how are you?" And it got the typical, "Oh yeah, I'm good. I'm great." And like, no, like, how are you? You like go deeper, like really check in on your people. Is that something when you were going through this? Would it have helped you if like your pocket of friends sent you more text messages? Because I'm always thinking of people that are going through this. And I know when I watch things or I watch like self-help videos, I'll hear something like, yeah, that's great, but I don't have that. You know, it's like you said, have your community around you. Somebody's gonna listen to something like, yeah, well, I don't have any friends. I don't have a community. It's like, what would you suggest to get a community or get involved in that? Is that, yes, take that there, wherever you want to take it.
That's a great question. Cause I think like that was a big thing when I was starting to get sober, and why I was like around the group of people that I was around, because you're like the sum of whatever that quote is, like what is it?
Sum of all fears?
Yeah. Or not sum of all fears, but the people that you hang out with. Right.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
So it's like, I was always, you know, not to say like when I was playing, like before my knee injury, like I was at the field and I was playing with a bunch of people, and I would still go to the bar and I would still, you know, have a beer after practice or whatever, but it was chill, right? Like I wasn't like joining and at least in my mind, it probably was, but like I wasn't drinking with bad intention. You know what I mean? Like when I got hurt and when like I didn't have proper ways, and what ultimately it was is like I had never really dealt with the trauma and stuff that I had been going through, you know. That's what it really was, and why I was drinking to begin with. But I was trying to, you know, I would go from playing paintball to hanging out with the paintball guys and drinking beers, and then it went from like, okay, I'm not around my paintball friends anymore, and I'm just drinking by myself. And then I'm a social butterfly anyway. So like, I'm not drinking by myself at a bar. I'm probably going to talk to some people. Right. Like, and I'm talking to people, and I've got friends now, right? Around, I'm in Austin. It's a young city, metropolitan area, dude. Like, go out, it's a party culture, right? You go out on a Friday and you don't come home until Sunday morning. So that was a group of people that I was around. And that was because half of that was because I was lonely. That was a social circle. Drinking and doing drugs is a social thing, right? Like it becomes a social thing. And so I was craving just being around people because I wasn't around the paintball friends anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so I knew that being around people, and to bring this full circle, is that put yourself around the positive environment. You know what I mean? That doesn't have to be paintball. For me, it was paintball because now I'm around a whole bunch of like-minded people who do the same thing that I do. And it's not drinking and it's not, drugs. It's just playing points, right? And so like, that's a positive environment to be in, and it's social, right? So it may feel weird and you may feel awkward about doing it, but like, look and see, like, okay, if your passion is, I don't know, reading, man, like go join a book club or something, it sounds silly, dude, but you gotta go do it. Or if you like, tinkering with, I don't know, man, just
RC cars or something.
Yeah, dude, go on a Facebook group, go to a meetup. If you like coffee, man, like you like running, go to a run club. Just put yourself around that environment. Inevitably, somebody's going to come up and start a conversation with you and start talking to you. Maybe you guys develop a relationship. Now you're a part of a community. Find a community, right? Even if that's like just going to see a movie with a buddy. Like you guys just love your movie buffs, right? So just go see a movie.
Yeah.
Those interactions that don't involve substances and alcohol, those are the environments that you want to be in. Because, dude, like Patty says, if you're in a barbershop, you get a haircut.
You're gonna get cut.
Like you're gonna go. Like I'm not saying like if I went to a bar, I'd immediately go up and get a drink, right? But
the temptations are
gonna be there. I'm gonna be like, man, let me just go grab a beer so I don't feel weird around here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that would be the overarching piece of advice. Is I was just like, put yourself around a community and put yourself in a positive environment that doesn't involve those things or those triggers that would force you to then go use.
Man, that's beautiful advice. And I guarantee you, somebody listening to this, like you are going to help somebody go through this. And whether they reach out to me or reach out to you, which I hope they do, just to share like, hey, you're helping. Thank you for opening up and sharing your story, because this is so powerful.
Yeah.
Coming on a platform like this and talking through your experience and what you went through, and also to give advice on how to start, because that's the hardest thing for anything is how do I start? Mm-hmm. How do I take this big thing and really break it down to small steps?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
100%.
Let's transition one more time, because you had said something earlier, and I actually jotted down and took notes. You said you take your attitude and you pour it into passion. And we had touched on it a little bit. You started a brand up, I think within the last year, called the Breakfast Club, which now that I know you and know Patty and know the story, it seems like you've taken some inspiration from him to like start that. Talk to me about like what the Breakfast Club means to you. And now that you have more time, where do you want the Breakfast Club to go?
Yeah, man. So the Breakfast Club was really started without an intention of ever making it a brand, right? It was like literally, I think it was like early on in like when I was like going outlaw and stuff, or like, the local field that we play at. I had gone out there to practice a couple of times, and I just like had it on my Instagram, right? Like I had it like just, Breakfast Club, right? And it was just like a little story caption or whatever. And like as I started to practice more and more and, put that on, people, of course, are just like super curious on Instagram and any social media platform. And they're like, what is the Breakfast Club? Like, what is this? And, what is it? Like, what does it entail? Blah, 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 blah. And really, man, it was just like all started from just like, it was early in the morning and I was out there like practicing and, slowly but surely people like it gathered a little bit of interest and like, I had some, folks, from our field, like Joel and Jordan from Austin Salt. And like, there are some of like the OG Breakfast Club members. Like we would be out there like in the morning and it would be like in the middle of the off season in the winter, and it'd be like 35 degrees. And, we'd just be like practicing and getting it in, man. And that's what it was. And that's what it started as. And then it started to just get, more traction and kind of snowball into something that was like a community-based type platform where it's like, Breakfast Club is about getting better at paintball, having a sense of community, no matter whether you're like a pro or D6, like everybody's just going to get to the field at this time and start to like, and just like practice, get it in, share tips, share tricks, you know what I mean? And just like have a sense of community. Yeah. You know what I mean? Compete. Right. And, there's never going to be like, you never like pay to get into the Breakfast Club. There's never any monetary side to it. It's just like, a cool thing to do with your friends and kind of just a moniker that you have to, practice and, before you like start playing points and just kind of build upon that community. Yeah.
Wow. It's like, what a full circle moment, right? Because like when you're talking about your sobriety and your recovery, you put so much emphasis on being a part of a community, and without knowing it, like you created a community to help other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah. And that, man, that's true.
Has that ever clicked for you?
Yeah, no, I really didn't know. Not till now. No, to be honest with you, it's just, like, I think, like I said, I just kind of started it. It was just kind of my thing to, just keep my mind off stuff and stay busy. Right. But like, maybe you're right. Like Breakfast Club, maybe that is the shining light for someone. And like, man, you know what? I just got to make a Breakfast Club. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Maybe that's their anchor,
Yeah, there's something about having somebody that holds you accountable. And that's where being involved in a community really helps that. And so, yeah, I think without knowing it, like you are creating a community that's now going to help other people.
Yeah, man. And it's really cool. It's been super cool because we've got, it's not just, Central Texas folks now. It's like, we've got Jaron Perez, who's from Hawaii,
Wow.
He found us randomly. Somebody reposted it and he found us randomly like on Instagram. And like, he came out and played an event with the Breakfast Club team. Like, like we go back and forth and like, he's a grinder out there in Hawaii. And, now we're national, baby. You know what I mean? So it's like, you see people like just posting like, oh, Breakfast Club and like Breakfast Club Paintball. And it's just, it's a spirit, man. You know what I mean? Just a community and a spirit of grinders who just like to work hard at something,
Yeah, there's something so powerful about just feeling like you're a part of something, right? And I've heard it on a lot of podcasts that I digest lately of, with all the technology and AI coming into place, people are going to crave community more than ever, right? Which is why like you're seeing, I've got a Patreon, I've got a Discord behind that, and people just love to be a part of a community, to feel like they have something. And so you're doing that. You're giving people now literally around the world a spot where maybe if they're out the field alone and no one else is there, in their mind, they're like, I'm part of the Breakfast Club. So like, I'm going to keep doing this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now that you've got, obviously more free time, you've got a traditional full-time job. Do you see yourself doing anything more with the Breakfast Club or taking it in different paths?
Yeah. So now that I have more free time, it's definitely something that I'm going to be able to kind of transition and put more effort into. Obviously I'll be working during the day, like during the week, but I can carve out, a little bit more intentional time for it. You know what I mean? And I'm still kind of trying to work through like what that will look like, and, what like creatively that I kind of want to do in that regard. But it will be something, we'll always have, no matter what, we'll always still be meeting together. Like we'll always still get together, and we'll always, still practice. But now I can be a little bit more, intentional with it, because like during all the craziness, right, I was like trying to do all these different things, and I was like, yeah, I would almost, I guess it would take me away from like the joy and the creativity side of it, where I was just like, oh, I just got to get something out. You know what I mean? I can't, it just, it feels like I was rushing a lot of stuff, and I was just posting a post. And so it really wasn't like, I just didn't have a lot of intentionality behind the stuff. And some of it turned out great, but like, it was just like, I wasn't really having fun with it. And again, it's a fun creative project for me. I would like to expand on the website that we have and have it be more of like a journalism type platform to it. So, there's not like print or anything like that, but like, if there's a way that like we connect with, different players, or, people that may not even be within paintball, right? And just, we like tell a little story about them on our website, written. I went to school for journalism, so like anytime I can,
tie that into it.
Yeah, tie that, like use my degree in some sort of way, and do something like that, and then have like, Instagram carousels of kind of like their short form answers, or if it's like a cool thing where like, oh, like, here's Patty Gleason's, like, here's a short interview about Patty Gleason, and then here's like 10 to 15 songs that he has on his playlist when he's at an event, something cool like that, and have it be like a little mix series on our website or something like that. Just something to keep it light and fun, you know what I mean? But at its core, it's just always going to be us just grinding on the weekends and getting together, it feels good to be a part of something, right? So
totally. Man, that's so cool. That's like when you said having the carousels and, maybe having someone's top 10 songs or whatever, like companies used to do that. And gosh, I love that so much, because like I would be able to like connect with that person more of, oh, wow, they listened to that. Like I've never heard of that. Like I look up to this person. I want to figure out what that is. I'll never forget when, like years ago, when Ryan Greenspan used to do his vlogs, where he would like have his little GoPro or whatever and travel the world. He would always put this music group, Vocab Company, behind all of his vlogs. And I didn't know anything about music, but because I looked up to Ryan at the time and thought it was cool, he always talked about it. I'm like, I want to go listen to Vocab Company now. And every once in a while, they'll pop up on a playlist, and I'm like, oh, cool. Like, this brings back so much nostalgia to it.
Yeah, dude, I have a whole playlist on my Spotify that's just songs that you hear on Dirter videos.
Yeah. It's crazy.
These obscure like punk rock bands that like
random.
It's just like random as hell, but yeah, it just influences you so much. Like it, it brings you back to a time where a memory or something like that. So yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Well, you heard it here first. Reservations are always open. So one of the only restaurants in Austin that you can show up without a reservation.
Yes, you can. Come on, man.
Yeah. Benji, this has been absolutely amazing. I think you sharing your story and opening up about this massive life change that you just went through. And I'm excited to see you now be able to pour your heart and your passion back into the sport the way you want to. And I think we're just going to watch your career on the field now take off with it.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah.
Dan. And then I want to shout out a couple of quick people if I can, just props. Shout out to all the Oilers guys. Shout out to Pro DNA, who sponsors the Oilers. So, shout out to everybody in my community. You know who you are. Every member of the Breakfast Club. Everybody who's just ever said and walked by and said thank you. Like everybody that's just not, not like going into detail, but like just saying a simple thanks. You saved those people who did that, saved me so many times from the hardest days, man. Like just a simple, like, Benji, thank you for what you do. That helped with my mental health. That helped with my sobriety. That helped, not me falling off of a cliff, dude. Like that just means so much. So I just want to say thank you to all of the community and everybody in it. I care about you guys so incredibly much. So
man, beautiful. That's, as you're saying that, like I'm thinking I'm going to miss, at our local field, going down the hallway and looking over and just like seeing you at the, behind the rental station. Like it was always a moment where like we would connect or behind the bar for a little bit. Cool. Well, I cannot let you off the hook without doing the last question, which I know is like a part of the show where we connect all of our guests. And this one's really cool. This I just had Matt Soma on last week, who's the professional referee who does it full time. So he made paintball his life. His question for you, without knowing you, or you would be on the show, and this is really cool. I think it comes at a perfect time for you. What's one thing that you do every single day, no matter what, to find inner peace?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Simple answer for a very great question. The thing that I do every day to find my inner peace is walk my dog.
I love that.
That is an anchoring thing every morning, no matter if I'm in a rush, no matter if I got all the time in the world, no matter what, walking my dog, taking him back into the apartment, filling up his food bowl, and we start the day. That's a great question. Just kind of just like that 10 minutes that we have, 10 to 15, that walk, get your mind right, get you cleared, and get you ready to go for the day. So I would say that.
What a great answer. Yeah. All right. Pressure's off, man. You get to ask a question to next week's guest.
Okay. Man. All right. So my question would probably be, do you think, and I think this is probably, I'm just on par with the conversation. Like, do you think your passion is always your purpose?
Wow. Whew, that's deep.
Do you think your passion is always your purpose? Because if you really think about that, I don't know. Some of us might have different answers, man.
Yeah. I think when you put that into perspective and like try to write that down and like really think of your priorities, is the passion always there? Yeah. Deep stuff. Cool. Well, Benji, thank you so much for coming on, and good luck in your new career. And like I said, I think we're all listening. We're going to be fans of just sitting back now and watching you go explode on the field now that you can pour your heart back into what you truly love, which is being on the field.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Dan.
Of course. So to all the listeners tuning in, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Shellda Podcast. We'll catch you next time. See ya.